You ever go to the store and buy a game, or you ever go to the video store and rent a game, only to come home and realize that it was really atrocious? I'm sure everybody's done that, and these are my top 10 games that really fall into that list. The top 10 worst games I've ever played. And like I said, I can only put games on here that I've played before. I know there are probably way worse games out there than the ones I put on this list. I just haven't played them. So, without further ado, here comes Stalin's top 10 worst games of all time. Alright, starting off the shitstorm at number 10 is A Bug's Life on the N64, coming out to coincide with a popular Pixar movie. And I remember this game very well because it was one of the first games I got on my N64, and it was also during the time where I felt like you had to beat that game. It's you versus the game, and you gotta take it out. And I was never able to beat it, which has been a scar on me. But the main reason why this game is on my top 10 worst games of all time is because it has something that has been etched into my brain ever since. I can't remember the character's name, but a little ant girl would fly around near you and follow you, constantly going, "This way, Flick! This way, Flick! This way, Flick!" Oh. You thought Navi was annoying? Imagine her times 10 on helium. And that's probably the main reason why I'm putting this as my number 10 worst game of all time. Alright, next up at number 9 is Red Steel, a Wii launch game. This game was a first-person shooter and wowed everybody with its trailers depicting realistic shooting and realistic swordplay. However, when the game came out, the controls were awful. It was so hard to control your guy. He turned like a tank, and occasionally the cursor would just revert itself into the center of the screen, and making some parts virtually unplayable, as well as the sword fighting that looked so awesome in the trailer was more like beating each other with sticks. While the game looked fantastic, the storyline made no sense, and oh god, the voice acting. Jesus Christ, don't get me started on the voice acting. It's not that hard to do a Japanese accent. It's really not that hard, but these guys did the worst Japanese accents I'd ever heard in my life. And that's one of the reasons why Red Steel is easily my number 9 worst game of all time. Alright, coming in at number 8 is Far Cry Vengeance on Wii, another game that was made to coincide with the Wii's launch, and I don't really have to explain why this game is so terrible. You can just look at the footage. It's an ugly, framey mess, and most of it didn't make any sense. In all honesty, I was a huge fan of the original Far Cry on PC. Fantastic game, and I was very excited to play this game. But look at this. Look at this footage. I mean, suddenly there's just crates appearing out of nowhere in front of you. There's explosions that look terrible going off all around you. And you, like I said, horribly look, this ugly game, very framey. You might think that, you know, this video itself is framey, but no, this is the actual frame rate of the game, which would often drop below 10 frames per second. It was a mess. Action was generic. There was just no redeeming qualities about this game, so that's why this generic, shitty first-person shooter easily gets the number 8 spot that spits on the good name of Far Cry. Well, I can hear the fanboys screaming now with this one. But not only is Metal Gear Solid 4 a terrible game, it's one of the worst games I've ever played. If you can even call that a game, considering that most of it is just you watching dialogue of characters sprouting stuff you already know and repeating stuff that they already know, trying to support a half-baked, ham-fisted spy espionage thriller that is just so convoluted that there's nothing redeemable you can take from the story. And then when you do actually get to play, the gameplay is old, it's stale, and it's not thought through. I mean, you've got to press like 3 buttons to look down the scope of your weapon, and not to mention, there's no point in sneaking around at all, considering that you can just Rambo your way through the whole game, unless you're like some kind of uber nerd and want to collect all the collectibles and get all the stuff, then you can sneak around. But for people who actually just want to get through the story, you can just Rambo your way through everything. There's no point in stealth at all. There's just nothing redeemable about this game, and that's why it gets my number 7 worst game of all time. Alright, coming in at number 6 is Tomb Raider, Angel of Darkness. And I happen to be a huge Tomb Raider fan. The first game was one of the first games I ever played. Not to mention a lot of games owe a lot of things to the first Tomb Raider. However, this one marked the death of the series for me because as iteration came out, they just didn't change things. While other games took the formula that Tomb Raider established, built on it, changed things, fixed some issues, the Tomb Raider series itself just didn't. And each game just stagnated more and added another layer of shittiness onto each iteration of Tomb Raider until this one came out, which was the pinnacle of a sort of shit sundae, and the cherry on top was the fact that they added RPG elements into a Tomb Raider game. Come on, RPG elements in a Tomb Raider game? Are you kidding me? It's a goddamn crime.
Let's see what we've
For
got
being the
here.
pinnacle of the Tomb Raider shit sundae, this game more than deserves this number 6 spot on one of my least favorite games of all time. Alright, now we're getting to the shitstorm here. This is number 5, Custer's Revenge on the Atari 2600. And I found out about this game about 5 or 6 years ago when I was doing some research on General Custer, because I wanted to figure out why everyone kept referencing Custer's Last Stand. And about the only 2 legacies that he left behind was the fact of him being the modern sort of father of rape on the battlefield, and this game, which really kind of personifies this legacy. And as soon as I heard about this game, I had to go and find an emulator and download it and play it for myself to see if it really existed. And I do have to say that I regret it, because all that you do in this game, this is just the only gameplay there is you are a rough approximation of General Custard, trying to dodge a rough approximation of arrows and a rough approximation of a desert battlefield, raping a rough approximation of a native woman against a rough approximation of a cactus. And that's it. I think the only thing I can really say about this game is that General Custard would probably be proud if he saw it today. Alright, coming in at number 4 is Final Fantasy III on the Nintendo DS, and I was kind of suckered into buying this one because I looked at the screenshots and thought the graphics looked fantastic for the DS, so I guess I kind of thought the game would be fantastic. Turned out that was a mistake, and why I hate this game is a little tough to explain. It might be because there's no real storyline and no characters you can get attached to, which are very important for RPGs, but I think the main reason why I despise this game is because it beats you down and doesn't reward you for it. I've got no problem with a game being difficult, just so long as you're rewarded for those difficulties. In this game, it felt like you were struggling futilely for the entire duration of the game, and that is a cardinal sin when it comes to making games. And because this game is such an epitome of that sin, I think it's my 4th worst game of all time. Alright, coming in at number 3 is Realms of the Haunting. And you guys all know that I despise this game. And why I despise this game should be simple enough, because I've already said so much about it. And if you don't know, well, I got the whole game documented on my channel, so you can go and check out that Let's Play and learn for yourself.
Bone.
I think the only thing I can really say about this game is Bone. Looks human.
Bone. Looks human.
Alright, coming in at number 2 is E.T. And there's a reason why this game tops so many worst game of all time list. There's a reason why this game is said to have crashed the video game market. And there's a reason why there's apparently millions of them buried in the desert. Because this game is that bad. Because this game is awful. And yes, I have played it. Again, I downloaded it on an emulator just so I had to try what was apparently the worst game of all time. And basically all you do is wander around this environment as E.T. supposedly collecting parts so you could phone home, but every time you would try and find a part, it would be in a pit, and then you go into the pit, and then you try and fly back out of the pit, but you fall back into the pit and try and fly back out and fall back down until you just wanted to blow your own brains out. I think the real question here is, what game is going to top E.T. on this worst game of all times list? Was there any doubt that I would have put Stalin vs. the Martians as my worst game of all time? This game is an abomination to all mankind. In fact, it is such an abomination that it possessed a CD and tried to kill me. And that alone is enough to put it as the worst game of all time on this list. I mean, I'm more machine than I am man now. It pretty much destroyed all my internal organs. But beyond that, Stalin vs. the Martians just has all the hallmarks of a bad game. Awful graphics, awful controls, just no reason to really keep on playing. But I guess it did have its memorable moments. had driving over confetti men with tank treads, the Stalin dance, and of course, the titanic battle between mechanized octopus Hitler and 60-foot Stalin on the battleground of Mars. But, that being said, it's just not enough to redeem this disgusting symbol of all of mankind's evil from getting Stalin's #1 worst game of all time. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this list. It's going to be Joseph Vishwanovich Stalin signing off for now, and I'll see you guys later.
And there you go. I just killed Octopus Hitler. Could that have been the biggest trip of all time?